I think they saw the same kind of rocks that they saw in Colombia in the early 2000s when they made a series of significant, very large scale discoveries. AngloGold are looking for a tier one deposit. So tier one for a company like AngloGold is 5 million ounces. I think that's a really, really hard thing to find.
Hello and welcome back to The Next Big Rush. I have a very special guest today, Keith Henderson of Latin Metals, and we're here with some great news. But before we go into the news in and of itself, I want to welcome Keith and ask you to give a brief overview of what Latin Metals is and why it's so special. I love your business model, and so I keep raving about it. Welcome, Keith.
Thanks. Nice to be here. It's our first time. We met in Frankfurt recently, but
Yes,
it's
we
nice
did.
to be doing a few videos and things. So Latin Metals is basically a prospect generator. I think it's the best model in the world for investors. It basically looks at protecting the investor from the kind of what feels like inevitable dilution. And we dilute really just at the asset level so that shareholders coming in are not getting consistently diluted. And that's really, it's like an endless cycle. If you're investing in a standard exploration company, if you invest early, you kind of get punished for that later because you're getting it diluted and diluted, and suddenly like there's 800 million shares out and your little piece of the company is worth nothing. And more importantly, because there's been so much dilution, there's no chance that your share price is going to go up and you're going to make any money. It's completely the opposite with us. We really do everything that we can to limit the dilution that people are going to see. We're diluting the asset level by bringing in partners, and those partners are earning an interest in the projects by spending a lot of money. Like basically all the high risk money and all the big dollars are spent by somebody else. So we don't need to raise money very much. We're on average the last 4 or 5 years we've been raising about $1.3 million a year, and that covering part of what is basically a $2 million per year overhead. And that covers lots. That covers all of our people, our Vancouver office, an office in Lima in Peru, an office in Argentina, all of our acquisitions, the exploration that we do. It's super cheap, really, really cheap. And that really only gets cheaper as time goes on, like as you get more partners coming in. And as those option agreements get towards the back end where the payments are bigger, you get to the point eventually, and we haven't quite reached it yet, but you get to the point where you don't have to raise money anymore. And
That's
then
the dream.
everyone that's a shareholder is just sitting there waiting, and that's great news, isn't it? So that's really not very far away from us right now. Like for example, AngloGold's next payment in 2026, assuming that they make it, is 850,000 US dollars. But
Nice.
that's half of our 2 million Canadian
For
in that
sure.
one deal alone. So that's great.
Beautiful. Okay, so the news is out today, and it's about a permit that you've just, I always say finally got, because in mining, everything takes longer than what we would like. So you finally got the permit. And before we get into what the permit means and what that means moving forward for news about the company and then about the project, this is a project that you optioned with Anglo. Just for
Yes.
context, for the people who might be, a little bit new to the gold space, Anglo isn't a tiny company and they don't do tiny deals. They're looking for multi-million pounds, ounces, you name it. They look for large scale projects. What was it that Anglo
Yeah.
saw in your specific Organullo Gold Project that made them say, okay, this is worth investing in and investigating a little bit further?
I think they saw the same kind of rocks that they saw in Colombia in the early 2000s when they made a series of significant, very large scale discoveries. Uh, and there's no substitute for that kind of experience. Like AngloGold made those discoveries, and their people are the only people that saw those rocks and know what they're looking for. And so when they came to look at our project and they got on the ground to do some of their due diligence, they started to see the same kind of rocks and they started to think, this looks pretty interesting. And what was super interesting for me as well as for them was that a bunch of other companies had worked on this project over the years, and they kind of got distracted by the wrong thing. There's a little tiny underground mine there called Julio Verne, which I guess it was mined probably in the 1930s, something like that. There's really high grade gold and a little bit of bismuth. And so geologists are pretty simple creatures sometimes. And we get on the ground and we look at a project and we go, oh, look at this, there's a mine right here. So let's go drill like right over there, close by. Let's see if we can come up with something, an extension to this thing. And the inclination is to think, well, let's just work from the known to the unknown and see if we can make this little thing bigger. So 4 or 5 companies tried that, drilled about, I think it was about 8.5, 9,000 meters in total. All of them failed spectacularly, right? Like they all found something. Like for sure there was a gold system there, and they were getting like maybe 60 or 70 meters at 0.3 grams per ton gold.
They're getting some, but not
great.
Big headlines, yeah.
But AngloGold were completely undistracted by this, and they went and looked at the rest of the property, where I think many of the geologists maybe had never even walked. They saw these rocks and these signatures that they'd seen in Colombia. And I won't get into the details of that, but basically they're not seeing a ton of gold and silver at surface. And that's what they expect, because they expect this target to be a little deeper. They expect to drill through some unmineralized rocks to get to the system that they're interested in hitting. But there are things poking up through these unmineralized rocks that gives them kind of the confidence to say, yeah, there's something here. The technical analogy, like the most straightforward technical analogy right now in kind of a current deposit, is Salares Norte in Chile, which is a goldfields deposit. It's 4.75 grams per ton gold, about 3.9 million ounces. And that's not to say that that's exactly what we're going to find, but that's the technical analogy, and that's what they're looking for. So AngloGold are looking for a tier 1 deposit, and they don't get to do deals on projects where they can't put their hand on their heart and say there's a chance that we're going to find that. Like that just doesn't get past the boardroom. It doesn't get funded. So tier 1 for a company like AngloGold is 5 million ounces. And it's a really, really hard thing to find. And I don't know if they're going to find that or not, but that's what they believe is possible. And that for us is like thoroughly exciting. So they're going to be drilling, the permit's about 11,900 meters. I think they're planning to drill about 7,000 meters right away in the first phase, and that's going to be later this year. And if they get into something, it's going to be completely and utterly transformational for us.
That's amazing. So Anglo is going to go out there and drill it. How much can they earn into, and like what are their terms? Are they, have they paid some cash already, shares? What's the deal here?
Yeah, they've paid cash already. The last check they gave me was like $200,000 US, which was about a month ago. The deal itself in total, it's funny, the deals are getting more and more valuable for me as I get through this process, and that's partly a function of when you get a partner like AngloGold, the next partner you get has got a certain view on your projects, and you start to get respect for the kinds of projects that you're defining. And so the value definitely increases over time. But with Anglo, which is a deal we signed a few years ago, they have to spend $10 million US. That's a lot of drilling. They give us, I think it's about $2.5 million US over time. So yeah, it's significant amount of non-dilutive cash coming into us. It's a significant amount of drilling, and it's enough drilling to tell us whether there's something significant there or not. They also have to produce a resource estimate. And then to get from 75, they have an opportunity to get all the way up to 80%. So that last 5% is interesting for me. And I build a lot of these kinds of things into my deal. So in this case, after they deliver me a resource estimate, if they want another 5%, they have to take every ounce of gold they've discovered and multiply it by $4.65 US. And that becomes a check that I get for that 5%.
I don't know who came up with that term, but that is beautiful.
Thank you.
That is a really good sweetener. I was talking to a few partners of mine about little tiny things that you can put, for the future of the project if it is successful, so that you don't regret letting it go so cheap when you do sign it. And that really comes back to bring something of value if they do find anything. So it's a good job, putting that in, because it completely sways, the benefits, not just to the Anglo side, but to you as well. But it keeps it balanced to a certain extent, because if they are willing to drill that much, guess what? they're finding something, and it's something for them of value, because majors need to strengthen their pipelines, and they need to do it quickly. So good on you for getting that in. Okay, you got permits in hand. What's next? I'm assuming Anglo being a major, they aren't going to be able to flip on a switch and, be out there drilling next week. What does the process usually entail from, okay, permit in hand? When do you think it would be appropriate for them to be drilling? Is there seasonality to this project, and when could, I guess, investors expect some news flow coming out of these results?
It's a good question, because a lot of investors see a news release, a drill permits in hand, they're like, "Woohoo! When do we start?" And it's not like that, Like permitting as a process is a long-term commitment, and it's a relationship building commitment that a company has to undertake. The days are gone when you could turn up, talk to a community, and say, "Good news, we're coming here. We're going to drill here." Like nobody cares, nobody wants it. You got to build relationships. You've got to do the right things with the community. You've got to make the right kind of commitments that are going to be meaningful and motivate people to work with you. And working with you is the key term. Like it's an ongoing relationship. So yes, we have a permit in place, but now we go through the process of meeting the terms that are defined within that. And so there's important things to be done, a lot of preparation to be done. Camps need to be built. They need to think about how waste is going to be disposed of. Need to think about prevention of any environmental damage if there was any kind of spill on site. Roads need to be built. They need to be built to a high standard. We're working in mountainous terrain. They have to be built in a safe way so that we don't have accidents. Like it just goes on and on and on. So yeah, you're exactly right. It's not like a 5-minute process, but it's not going to take forever ever either. I'm thinking kind of end of September, early October would be decent guidance for people in terms of when these guys will get started. And that would mean that probably they could get that 7,000 drilled before the end of the year, with results coming early next year.
Hopefully, beginning of the year. Then that's because that's a pretty large beginning, right? 7,000.
Exactly.
That's that'll give them something to think about, and something to work with for sure. That's great. I'm super excited because it's not every day that we get to see a company that has a lot of good projects, do deals with majors, and then be able to advance those projects at the right time. So silver's breaking out right now. Gold seems to be, whether it's being influenced by silver or gold is influencing silver in and of itself, that doesn't matter. But both metals are going up right now, which bodes well because this is perfect timing. And we'll be watching for sure, and we'll be looking forward to hearing about not just the actual beginning of the drilling campaign, but also how it goes and the results that it brings. We will be watching for certain. And when that happens, Keith, I'm going to ask you to come back and keep us posted on what it all means. And I'm going to go and investigate that other deposit that you mentioned to see what is that Anglo is trying to investigate here, because to me that's super interesting. Different types of deposits and what that means, the kind of clues that you see in certain mineralized bodies. Does it come up to surface? Does it not, etc.? That's something that I think every investor at some point should become interested in. And right now, I'm beginning to get more and more interested in that sort of a little bit more of a technical aspect. So yeah, I'll invite anybody who's watching, add Latin Metals to your watch list at a bare minimum. I am biased because this is a partner company and I'm a shareholder. So take that into consideration, but also take into consideration the fact that you can go look at all of their projects. They have, the information on their website. They have their partners listed. They keep news coming out at least every month. And you can see exactly what they have and the potential that they are holding on to, and holding on to with really good terms, as we've just exemplified here with that little tiny bit on the contract that could bring in a lot of money for this, for now, small company. So Keith, thank you so much for coming onto the show and explaining a little bit of what this means and the, I guess, set the tone for the expectations moving forward. We'll be watching. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Talk soon. Cheers.
Take care. Chat soon.
Bye-bye.